Welcome to the She Found Motherhood podcast. On today's podcast, Dr. Pip joins me to chat all about baby showers. We discuss where the whole idea of baby showers come from, and it actually goes way back with some not awesome reasons behind it. And we also kind of get to what can a modern baby shower look like? How do you create an event that really celebrates the transition that you're going through or your partner's going through into parenthood? And how do you make sure that you do it in a way that feels good to you and gets you the outcome and the goals that you really want to? So this is a really fun podcast, a really fun episode. Everybody who is pregnant or has a pregnant person in their life should really listen to this, and we'll get to it right after this quick reminder.
Welcome to the She Found Motherhood podcast. We are doctors Sarah and Alicia, maternity physicians and moms who have been through it all. We want to empower you with knowledge so you can have the best pregnancy, birth, and postpartum experience you can.
She Found Health and She Found Motherhood is meant for general medical information only. The content of this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. This information does not apply to every situation. If you have questions or if you've received different advice, please contact your healthcare provider. Always seek the advice of your physician or another qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. The views expressed by She Found Health and She Found Motherhood and our guests are not representative of any of the institutions with which we are affiliated. Some of our podcast episodes are sponsored so that we can keep getting great info out there to you, our listeners. We only partner with companies that we truly believe in. Some of our links and suggestions may be affiliates, and we would appreciate you using them to help fund this important work. Now let's get to it.
Welcome, Pip. I'm actually really excited about today's podcast because this is a bit of a departure from what we normally would do, but I think it's a really important thing to chat about because it's one of those traditions and one of those things that help usher us into parenthood. And we're talking about the quote unquote baby shower today. Why don't you just start by introducing yourself? You're one of our favorite podcast guests, and most people I think who listen to our podcast will know you. But just in case, why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself and then we'll jump into it.
Well, thank you. And I love being on your podcast. You guys serve such a wide population. You're doing such good work. So I'm Dr. Pip Houghton. I am a family doctor by training on the North Island. I have a specialty certification in perinatal mental health, and I love supporting and encouraging postpartum families, mothers in particular, in their journey through motherhood and supporting patients through any sort of mental health challenges they may be having in this really important time.
And you have 3 young kiddos of your own, so you've probably had a baby shower or 2 along the way.
Yeah, I currently have a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 4-month-old. So it's busy over here, and they're all boys. We've got all boys as well.
So we may hear a little bit of ruckus in the background at some point. We'll embrace that.
A little bit of chaos.
Perfect. Awesome. So why don't we get into kind of like the history of baby showers? I always find it's interesting learning about how a tradition comes about. And I know you did a little bit of research into this. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, what you found?
Yeah. So when you asked me to chat about this topic with you, I thought, what is the origin of the baby shower? So I did a bit of Googling, and I mean, to be fair, I don't know how vetted these sources are, but it is very interesting. So there's actually been some sort of baby shower or celebration of transition to motherhood as far back as, ancient Egyptian and Greek civilizations. Those very early transitions were actually very focused on the concept of the new mother being unclean, which has been a concept in many traditional societies. So there was this period where the mother was viewed as unclean and she needed to be in quarantine. So she was in quarantine for 40 days after her baby came. And then once she came out of the quarantine period, there was a sort of ritualized celebration for re-entering society with her baby. It wasn't a process of gifts, but we're just sort of coming together and welcoming mom and baby into the world after this period of uncleanliness, which interesting. And then after that, if you look into the Middle Ages, this is where a more religious focus, a Christian focus kind of came in, where the baby shower was really centered around baptism. So after baby was born, and there was a celebration in which baby was baptized. And often mom was actually not allowed to attend this celebration because she too, even in the Middle Ages, was in the 40-day quarantine or period of rest. And I didn't find as much around uncleanliness tied to this. It sounded like it was more actually sort of a forced rest. So there was this celebration and baptism ceremony for baby, but mom was not present. And then in the Victorian era is where we can start to see it being more of a celebration filled with joy and gifts and involvement of grandmothers, aunties, sisterhood around becoming a mother. And part of it was tied to practical gifts, preparing the new family and the new mom for the expenses of welcoming a baby. And part of it was just a time to have lavish gifts and celebratory teas and cakes and just make it a special little moment. The first time we're seeing what is now the modern baby shower. And then that carried on into the baby booms in the 1940s and 50s, where the modern day baby shower really took off. And that was exclusively female. So it would be extremely rare to see men at those events. And apparently it was in the 40s and 50s where these are cheesy party games really took off, which is not really my favorite part of the baby shower. I know some people really get behind party games, but not really my jam. And these two, there's lots of gift giving and wisdom sharing, preparing the new mom for the logistical and practical pieces of becoming others. So crayons, diapers, wipes, all that sort of stuff. And then coming into modern time or today, we're seeing a lot of shift in the traditional baby shower. So certainly there's some circles that still do, exclusive baby showers hosted by either grandmother, and there's still games, there's still gifts, there's a lot of that traditional stuff happening. But we're also seeing baby showers that are co-ed. We're seeing baby showers just for men. We're seeing people have multiple baby showers. So there might be a family baby shower and a work baby shower. I've also really come to the idea of a nesting party, which we'll talk about a little bit more, but there's all sorts of variations on this celebration and rite of passage in becoming a new first time parent.
So cool. Thanks for doing that quick synopsis for us. Yeah, it's true. Like things are shifting so much. And I think part of the issue, and I've been reflecting on this, and I was thinking about I had a baby shower for my first. There were three of my colleagues. We were all due within a few weeks of each other. For two of us, it was our first. For one, it was our second. And our colleagues, our physician maternity colleagues, came together and had a baby shower for us. So it was all physicians, it was all women, it was all moms, and it was all people who do maternity care. And we all came together and had the celebration, celebrating the kind of the three of us. And some people gave like their favorite onesies, like the fun things they found really useful. Other people knit blankets for our babies and that type of stuff. And I never really appreciated it, but I was reflecting back on it the other day when I was thinking about this, how this kind of tribe came together, helped us know that we were not alone in this. There were others that were going through the exact same thing at the exact same time. And everybody else there had already gone through it and it had come before us. And so it was this kind of just this reckoning of you're not alone, you're in a community. We're here to help you moving forward, which I didn't really appreciate until looking back on it. But I think a huge part of the baby shower is oftentimes we don't actually throw it for ourselves. Somebody else is throwing a baby shower for us. And that doesn't necessarily need to be the case. And we're going to chat a little bit about that later. And so I guess depending on who's throwing the baby shower for you, it's going to dictate what that shower is going to look like. And so certainly if you have your own ideas as a pregnant person or a pregnant partnership or soon to be dad that you want, then you can also throw yourself a party, and that's okay. And we'll chat a little bit about how to go to do that and what to think about when you're planning it and thinking about how you want that to look, because it can be a huge celebration and a huge opportunity of learning. And I think it can have so many different purposes or outcomes that you want to get out of it. Yeah.
And I think in some families too, it can be a source of strife or conflict. So it's nice to think about these things early and have these conversations early if you're anticipating that there might be a family dynamic where conflict could arise, which ultimately should just be a joyful experience. When people have different ideas or visions for what a baby shower should look like, that can sometimes become tricky.
And so it's nice that you mentioned that you can have more than one. So if your mother-in-law desperately wants to have a baby shower for you, then let her do it. And then you can make your own one later or earlier and make it the celebration that you want it to be, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So let's chat a little bit about your nesting party, because I love this idea. We were talking about this a while ago. And then would love to hear about your third baby shower as well.
Yeah, so I have three boys, and I've had a few actually quite a degree of different baby showers with them because one baby was born right in the height of COVID, early COVID. So with my firstborn, I had a couple baby showers. So my mom hosted your traditional female gathering, aunties, sisters, that sort of thing. There were party games. I don't particularly enjoy party games, so I had very strict parameters on what was allowed in terms of party games. I didn't want anyone measuring my belly or touching me. So there was some communication around that. And then we also are part of a church in our community. So for that first baby, our church's culture is to host a baby shower after baby arrives and invite anyone who wants to attend to meet the new baby, share food, and celebrate as a welcoming of this baby, which was also very special because it's just a different population of people and you hear different stories and different experiences. And then with our second, because of the COVID factor, no one's gathering. He was born in July 2020, so really no one's gathering. We had a virtual baby shower, which I think has become somewhat commonplace now. Sort of the Zoom baby shower. My sister put together some sort of getting to know you games that were possible over Zoom. And I had gifts sent to me in advance and I opened them, on the screen. So just very creative, lovely ways to connect with people. And then with our third, we knew we were having another boy. We already had two other kids. We had all the stuff and we were about to move too. So I did not want any more stuff. And so when my mom and sister asked, what would we like to do to celebrate this pregnancy, which we also knew was our last pregnancy, and how are we going to welcome this baby in a way that felt special, but, appropriate for what we needed. I said, we really need a lot of logistical help. We don't need staff. So we would love to just host a nesting weekend. And so we had my mom, my dad, both of my siblings, both their partners all come up to where we were for a weekend, and we did projects around the house. We were getting ready to list our house, and stuff needed to be painted, and the yard needed to be tidied, and laundry needed to be folded, and baby stuff needed to be held out in storage, and the nursery needed to get ready, and all that logistical stuff that takes a lot of time, especially when you've got two other kids. And it's hard when you're pregnant. You're 36 weeks pregnant with the third pregnancy. It's hard to lift those tote bins out and go through the clothes by yourself. And my sister and I baked, we meal prepped, we put stuff in the freezer, in the fridge. And then we went out for a family dinner on a Saturday night. And it was just a nice way for everyone to be together and help us prepare that didn't require gifts because we didn't need gifts. And so that I really find that such a lovely way to prepare. And it's a nice thing you can do with friends too. It doesn't, if you don't have family nearby, it doesn't have to be your family, anyone who's in your corner.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think we'll go through a little bit about when you're starting to think about what you actually need and what your hopes are out of whatever, we'll call it the baby shower, but whatever that is for you that you decide, how you can think about what it is that you need and put together some kind of event, whether it's a traditional baby shower, if that's what you want, amazing. But if that's not what you want and you want something else like you did creatively, how can we put that together? Before we get into that, is there anything else that you wanted to touch on in your research or kind of that kind of discussion around? Because I know you talk a lot about matrescence and that transition to, we use the word mother for whomever is becoming parents, but specifically that kind of that birther and all of the hormones and all of the adjustments and all those types of things. Is there anything you want to chat around before we get into the kind of bit more nuts and bolts?
Yeah. And to be clear, when I use the word mother, I do mean anyone who identifies as a mother or mothering person. So when we're talking about matrescence or transition to motherhood, it's anyone who's really taking that role, transitioning into that role. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's always the person with all the hormones and the physical changes, because there's matrescence when you adopt a baby too. And we have baby showers when people adopt. So motherhood, matrescence, it really applies to your internal identity as that primary mothering maternal person. Just taking a step back to why bother having a baby shower. I know I've spoken with some people. I don't want other people to get me gifts. I know what I need. I'm just going to get it. I don't like having parties. I don't like being the center of attention. I don't want to do this, which is fine. However, I would say that sometimes it's important, and sometimes it's important later on down the line, to take these big moments of transition and these rites of passage and have them witnessed by your circle. And there is something really magical about your child coming together, as you mentioned, and witnessing your transition into a huge part of your life. When you go from someone with no children to someone with a new baby, so many changes happen. There's hormonal, physical changes, even when you haven't birthed a baby. We know that the non-birthing partner also goes through their own hormonal shift. There's spiritual changes, emotional changes, logistical changes. There's this huge shift. And when we go through transitions in life, if they're unwitnessed and uncelebrated, sometimes they can feel incomplete. So you think about graduation, birthdays, all these other big changes in life. If your graduation went unwitnessed, they probably a piece of you would feel a little bit incomplete, not devastated. But these are big transitions, and we need our people to witness these big transitions. So I think it's important to consider doing something. It doesn't need to be a party where people measure your belly and do all the things that can feel uncomfortable, because I'm in that camp. I don't like to be sitting in a circle being part of the games. But I think something to mark the occasion, and cultivating that ceremony helps to highlight who's in your corner when you need to call for help. And it's important to partners are going to be at this transitional ceremony. They also will look around the room and say, okay, I know I can go to that person when I need help with meal prep, and I can go to that person when I need help with laundry, and I can call this person. Baby's not sleeping and I need someone to hold the baby so I can nap. It just kind of sets the groundwork for using your partner.
Yeah, and I know you have a special segment in our prenatal course around preparing for postpartum and how to prepare your relationship and create your support team. And you have I think it's like a half hour kind of section in our online prenatal course all about that, because it is such a huge piece.
Hey Sarah, do you know what I've never asked you? Did you take a prenatal course when you were pregnant?
We did. Even though I'm a maternity care provider, my husband and I thought it would be an important process for us to go through together.
That's so cute. It must have been so hard for you guys to coordinate your busy schedules, though.
Oh, tell me about it. I was a medical resident at the time, and he was working full-time. We really struggled to find a course that would fit our needs, and ended up doing a semi-private course that still was challenging to schedule and quite expensive.
Wouldn't it have been nice for you guys to have access to an online course with evidence-based content that you could do from the comfort of your own home or on your own time at your own pace?
You're telling me if I had had access to something like our Pregnancy to Parenthood Prenatal Masterclass, it would have been a game changer.
And that's the big reason we put this course together, to provide parents with access to a reliable, comprehensive prenatal education from the comfort of their own homes and the ability to watch it and rewatch it when and where they choose.
Plus, it's got so much great information about preparing for the fourth trimester, which I'll admit, I felt really unprepared for. We focus so much on labor and birth when we're pregnant without understanding how challenging breastfeeding in the fourth trimester can be.
I hear ya. And that's why we put together such a comprehensive module all about what to expect for the fourth trimester and for your newborn.
If any of you listeners are pregnant and thinking about a prenatal course, I may be biased, but I would 100% recommend our online course. Head on over to www.shefoundhealth.ca/masterclass to check it out.
We promise you won't be disappointed or your money back.
I think that's a great segue into kind of thinking about what you want out of we're just going to call it baby shower, celebration, whatever you want to call it. And the first thing to think about, and again, this is something, whether or not you're planning it or somebody's planning it for you when they ask you what you want, is thinking about the actual purpose of the event. What is it that you're celebrating? And sometimes people are like, well, I'm having a baby. I'm celebrating having a baby. But why are you celebrating that? And sometimes you got to dig deep, right? You got to dig down into that. Why are you celebrating? And for some people, if you have a partner who you're equal and you really want to move into this parenting in an equal footing, okay, we're going to celebrate equality in our relationship and equality in parenting and wanting to understand more what that looks like. That might be your purpose, right? Or your purpose might be, okay, I know last time my second pregnancy, last time I really struggled postpartum. So I want to celebrate my support group who's going to come around me in that postpartum period. I want to celebrate them now so I can show my appreciation, because I know I'm going to probably struggle and I'm really going to need a lot of support. So I'm going to celebrate that now with that group of people. And for some people, it's going to be, my mother-in-law really wants to do this. This is really important. So I'm going to celebrate my mother-in-law by letting her host a party for me. And that's an okay purpose, right?
Yeah. And, the importance of grandmothers in these transitions is there, right? I think you were there. You were both at a conference recently for Canadian Women in Medicine. And one of the speakers, Dr. Jen Gunter, she spoke about menopause, but one of the quotes she said that really stuck with me was the matriarchal hierarchy of grandmothers and the importance of grandmothers and the survival of our species. And that the reason women go through menopause is so that we have grandmothers who can support the childbearing women below them. How important is that? How special is that we have these grandmotherly figures? And if you don't have a mother in your life who's going to be a grandmother as such, I'm sure there are women or mentors in your life who can act in that role, who can offer that support and guidance in place of a traditional maternal role. Because I recognize not everyone has a mom in their back corner for various reasons. If there is someone in your life who wants to have traditional grandmotherly baby shower, it's a consideration. Talk with them about that and what they want from it and how that's going to serve you.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's a really important piece. We've come from this multi-generational living situation to now we're relatively, most of us, quite isolated in our living situations. And you see these cultures, like I have this one patient who comes in and her mom comes in every single visit with her. And she's just so supported and she recognizes that and she's so joyous about it. And she just has this extra kind of lift behind her all of the time. Whereas other
Mhm.
people who are coming in, they don't have that extra support in whatever way it is. You can just see a difference when you have that really good support. And so calling together your support team and recognizing that's really important. Yeah. So when you're thinking of the purpose of your celebration, really dig down because that's going to define your entire celebration and it's going to look differently based on what your purpose is. And then the other thing to think about is what your outcome is. So for your third celebration, it was, we need to get our house ready. We need help to
Mhm.
get, the outcome is to get all of these tasks done. That's the
Yeah.
outcome. The purpose is to bring together my tribe. The outcome is to get all of these tasks done.
Yeah. And I had a task list.
And so thinking about what you want as the outcome, if you really want, if it's your first baby and you really need these things and X, Y, and Z, and you have a list of things that you're hoping to get out of it, then that's your outcome and that's a fine outcome. If
Mhm.
you're a partnership who's going into this and wanting to learn from those who've gone before you, from other partnerships that you really respect and doing it, appearing to do it well, then maybe what you want from them is their advice, right? Maybe
Mhm.
that's the outcome is you want some really good, tangible advice and tips and tricks on how to get through this next, let's be honest, 5 years, 10 years
Yeah.
for some,
And
right?
in terms of getting the advice that you want and need, it's probably reasonable if that's the goal to prepare those people in advance. Because if you ask people off the cuff, you're going to get oh, sleep when the baby sleeps and snuggle that baby because it won't last forever, which it's not wrong per se, but the legitimate advice, the practical on the ground, boots in the mud advice that you need. Sometimes people need to think about, especially if it was a few years ago that they were in the newborn phase. So if that's what your intention is, gather those people, send a little WhatsApp message and say, we'd love to take you all out for dinner or have you over for mocktails or whatever it may be. We would love for you to just share two pieces of advice. One, the hardest thing you dealt with and how you overcame it. And two, the best part of being a new parent and prepare people in advance so that they can have it ready for you.
Exactly. And that's why it's like knowing that outcome is really important. And for other people, it's going to be, I really just need help. I hate cooking and I want a fridge full of all of your delicious meals. And so,
Mhm.
again, preparing them for that, saying, hey, we're having this coming together of this group of people, whomever that group is. And I really want a freezer full of food at the end. So please bring a frozen meal, and if you can bring the recipe as well. And then maybe you put together a beautiful little recipe book that is, again, has
Okay.
some pictures from the event and is like a cherished sake, and you get your freezer full of meals if that's your outcome that you're hoping for. So thinking about what you want, if you're including your partner in this, what you and your partner want out of this, and maybe you have two separate events, and that's fine. Having a purpose and having an outcome, and then using that to plan it. Depending on what your outcome is, who are your guests going to be involved? And you don't need to invite everybody because
Mhm.
you want a certain outcome of it, you're going to invite the people who are a part of that. So if you have your tribe that comes together, who's going to be supporting you postpartum, that's who you're going to invite. You're not going to invite your second cousin who you never see. You're going to invite those really important people to you. And part of that event is going to be how can we strategize around what can people do? What are your skill sets? And that's going to be part of the activities, right? And so creating that guest list around the purpose and the outcome is a really important thing. And that can really help you define, is this person, should I invite them or not? Are they part of the outcome? Are they part of that purpose or not? And if not, that's okay. You don't need to invite everybody, or you create a different event to celebrate them in some other way. But again, this is about you and what your goals are. And so you don't have to, it's okay to not have everybody and their cousin and their
Yeah. It's a
child,
good time
right?
to start practicing boundaries, actually, because when you enter the newborn and postpartum phase, you're going to need to learn how to do two things. One is to ask for help, and two is to implement boundaries and hold your boundaries firm if they're being violated. So this is a great place to start. Ask for help, ask someone to help you plan it, and then set your boundaries in terms of what you will want this event.
Yeah, totally, totally. And then, like you said, you need to let people know what you need from them. So that invitation that you're sending out, we're celebrating coming together as a couple moving into parents, and we really want to get your top 2 pieces of advice. So come prepared with those, or we're celebrating like having a freezer filling party. So make sure you bring a frozen thing in. And so prepping people for what you need them to bring to the table, whether that's advice, whether that's just something, whether it's an actual gift, we need some X, Y, and Z. Can you bring one of these 2 things with you? Whatever that is, right? Give them some
Yeah.
options or
Yeah.
have a
And
list.
on the note of gifts, if you're listening to this as a support person to a pregnant couple or family, if you are considering buying a gift, I would strongly encourage you to actually consult the list that they've made, because a pregnant person has probably spent a significant amount of time researching every single item to the nth degree. It's often part of the nesting process. And especially if it's the first baby, a lot of research goes into all of those items. So even if there's something is amazing in the newborn period and that this person will really benefit from, I would strongly encourage you, even if you want to bring that item, bring it, but choose one small item from the list, because that list that's being created, it may seem like an easy kind of tick box thing that was done on Amazon, often represents hours and hours of research and antagonizing. So start with the list, and then if you want to add a few things in to fluff up the gift, then great. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. If you really think there's something important, yeah, bring it, but then get something that they actually ask for, because it
Yeah.
shows that you're caring about them and valuing what their needs are. Yeah. And so then getting to that activities, like you said, some people are not into games. I agree with you. I'm not really into games. Some things are fun, some things are not. So find out if you are playing this for somebody else, find out what their boundaries are, right? Find out what their interests are and plan it around that, right? You might, instead of measuring people's belly games, you might just have people tell a story about a time that was really special to them with the pregnant person in mind. A lovely story, so that part of those memories are being built up and reminded. And you get to know the other people at the rest of their tribe a little bit better because you've heard the story about them. But thinking about, again, what the purpose is and what the outcome is, and creating some activities around that, which not only is centered around the pregnant person, but also getting to know the other people who are obviously a really important part of their life, and starting to really build that community around this person, because you might actually need to be coordinating with one of the other members postpartum to support this person that you both value and love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And then the rules of engagement. It's okay to have rules at your party. It's actually
I
really
did.
good.
Yeah. As I've shared on all of my social media platforms, I've had curious pregnancy losses. And so when it came to my first pregnancy that actually stuck and we got to the baby shower, I was still in such a state of anxiety and disbelief that this pregnancy had made it to 32 weeks. And even up until 32 weeks, I really didn't want anyone to ask me about the baby. I definitely didn't want anyone to touch my belly, because I still felt like this baby was not going to make it to the other side. So I was very firm that leading into the baby shower, then watch a single person was allowed to touch my belly, because for me, it just felt like a very sort of triggering reminder of, oh, this could still go sideways. This could still go sideways. I just wanted to focus on the other side, things being positive, and that image of the baby being here in my arms, and not have anyone ask me too much about how the pregnancy was going. And I don't think I'm alone in that. I think we often don't voice those boundaries, but if that's your position, or if you just don't want to be touched because you don't want to be touched on anyone else, that's fine. Just put it out there. You can say what you need and what you don't need.
Yeah. And if you create that framework for people, they can actually have a better time, and you can have a better time, because there's very clear kind of guidelines of what's okay and what's not okay. If you don't want other children coming to the party, it's okay for you to say that, right?
Yeah.
And if people are offended, that's okay. They don't have to come. They don't have to be
Yeah.
there to support you, but you can say that in a gentle, constructive, lovely way. But as long as you've got a purpose behind it, it's okay to create some boundaries that help to define what you're doing and make it more successful and make it more of a celebration that you value and you'll remember and you'll really enjoy and you want to be a part of, right?
Mm.
You probably had you didn't want to go to a baby party where there was all these games and stuff, and you wouldn't have had a
Mhm.
good time there. But if you create an event that has an out purpose and an outcome and has these kind of this framework that you're going to feel comfortable within and the people that you really want to be there, you're going to have a much better time and it's going to be so much more impactful and such a, like you said, such a better witnessing of that kind of transition for you.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's also lots of people who don't have, maybe you just moved. I know for a lot of medical trainees who are getting pregnant in residency, they may have moved many times to medical school. I'm just using this as an example because I resonate with this. Medical school, residency, fellowship, what have you. There may be a lot of moving around as you're planning your family. And so you may find yourself in a place where you actually don't know anyone well enough to have a baby shower hosted for you, which can feel really sad actually. And so if you find yourself in that position, it's okay to host it yourself if you want to. Or it's okay to actually reach out to someone and say, hey, I just moved here. I don't think anyone's going to host me a baby shower. Could you do it? I would do it. I would host your baby shower in a heartbeat. You call me. If you're on the North Island, I'll host a baby shower. Yeah. Yeah. So there's those moments in life where you may not have those people in your physical location to do those things for you. And that's okay. You can reach out and ask someone. And I think most people would be honored to be asked, actually.
Yeah, and I think again, going back to that, creating that scaffolding for postpartum support as well, is if you don't have a big tribe in the community and you're in, this is an opportunity to start connecting with some people so you know that there's at least a few people you can reach out to for support postpartum if
Mm.
you need it. And especially in our community, and I mean our community, like my maternity providers, that's what happened with us. We were all just out of residency. We knew each other, but it wasn't like none of us had family in town. We were away from all of them, and so this tribe came together, and they chose to host it for us to show us that if we need anything, they're there for us. And actually, one of
Mm.
them made me this amazing, I still remember it, this amazing chicken meal that she gave to me 2 weeks before I was due, put it in the freezer, and it was like the best meal postpartum,
Mm.
and it came from
Mhm.
this place of love and appreciation, and she was a little bit more of a maternal figure to me as well, and so it was just such a special thing that I didn't expect, and it doesn't have to take a lot, but it just reinforces that you can reach out for people, which is such an important
Yeah.
piece to remember,
Yeah. It's
really.
okay to be cared for by others.
Yeah. Yeah, it's necessary, in fact. We all need
Mhm.
that. Cool. Anything else that you wanted to chat about today, Pip?
Yeah. I just wanted to throw in there that there is a movement towards dad baby showers, or I've seen them. I was just Googling some funny names for dad baby showers. So there's, dad show parties, man showers, baby stags, whatever you call it. The birthing partner only, typically men, getting together to celebrate transition to fatherhood. And I know that in some cultures, this is kind of eye rolling if people think, well, why does a dad need the celebration, or why does a dad need his own party? But I do think that it's important that the non-birthing partner and dads be recognized, because they have historically not really been recognized, and historically have not really been involved in a good source of support for the person who's holding the baby. So if we want to set dad up to own his role in fatherhood and to own his transition into parenthood, we also need to recognize that he's going through a shift as well. And anecdotally, when you ask fathers who have children, they want to celebrate their friends who are about to enter fatherhood. They do it differently than, historically baby showers have been done. So often it's hiking, mountain biking, going out for beers, having a weekend away, or doing something that's a little bit more in line with how men tend to bond with each other. But these events do matter for men as partners and soon to be fathers. And it's a really good place for them to talk and problem solve away from the pregnant person. And from a mental health standpoint, which is my area of interest, I know that about 1 in 10, probably more, dads do suffer from postpartum depression as well. And it's not well structured because we don't have a system for screening for it. But we know that dads respond really well to casual peer support more so than moms do. Moms do well in organized peer support, but dads don't tend to identify with that so much. And so if we set dads up with their casual network before baby arrives, then they've got that casual peer support in their back pocket if and when they need it too. And sometimes that just means texting their friends saying, hey, this sucks. Like, why didn't you guys warn me about this? But sometimes it's more serious than that. Sometimes it's, I'm not coping. I don't understand how I fit into this role. Where do I take the lead on things? And they need their support system too. So if you have a partner or someone in your life who wants their own dad third party, I think this is a great opportunity to celebrate all the changes they will also be going through and to celebrate this time for them to become a really supportive partner to the pregnant person.
And that's a great point and a great point to end on. Lots of conversation there, all about from where we started in traditional baby showers to kind of creating an event that celebrates you and the transitions that you're going through in a way that you want and it feels good to you and has a positive outcome and something that you can really take away from it, be that physical or just kind of advice and camaraderie and a support system. So, Pip, where can people find you? Because you do amazing work.
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram and Facebook at Making Mama Well. So Mama has an M-A-M-A. And then my website is www.makingmamawell.ca. I'm just about to record my last episode of my old podcast, which is all focused on people sharing their own story. So it's story driven of people who've walked various maternal mental health situations or diagnoses and how they became well again. And so that's the Making Mama Well podcast with Dr. Pip.
So good. And we'll make sure we post all of that in the show notes below. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Make sure to check out our website at www.shefoundhealth.ca and to sign up for our community for weekly bump blasts. Make sure to check us out on Instagram or Facebook at she.found.motherhood and head on over to your favorite podcast app and leave a review and a 5-star rating. If you enjoyed this podcast, take a pic of yourself listening to it and share it on social. Make sure to tag us on it so we know to keep making them.